Hello, ladies. I'm honored you came here to listen and that you are trying to get something done. And I just love videos, don't you, that show people doing things to their homes. Or I really like home tours. But I'll sit there and watch those, and then I'll think, an hour has gone by and I haven't got anything done. I'm sitting here trying to get inspired by what other people are doing, watching other people do things. So this is something you can listen to as you go. And I want to tell you right away, if you have not been here before, that you can go to my blog and listen to this, where it's on a pretty page. It's got a pink background, lots of flowers, and not so many distractions. I don't really interact with YouTube, so you can't make a comment here, but you can over there. And I'll leave a link that you can go to, and please go and subscribe so that you can also get notifications of my regular posts that don't have videos on them. And please, if you find that you can't leave a comment for some reason and it doesn't work for you, please go and give me an email and I'll post it for you. I'm Mrs. Sherman. I'm a veteran homemaker and a veteran homeschooler, and I have decided to post these so that I can keep you company but not get in your way, and you don't get in my way either. Isn't this a wonderful, wonderful era to be in? And people are so good. They're helping each other on their videos, and this is one of the things I'm doing to contribute to your well-being. I got dressed up for you today, and I have gotten down to my dress clothes. I've worn everything else out, my everyday clothes. I've worn everything else out, and I haven't had time to sew for myself. I am sewing for other people in my family right now, and the month of April is dedicated to that, and I'm behind. So I'm digging into the dressier clothes, and I'm wearing a necklace that one of my children gave me when they were only like 7 years old, and Mr. S took them out to shop for my birthday, and this is what I got. And of course, I keep everything from, 1972, and I don't have anywhere to wear it, and the Queen is not coming, so I decided to go ahead and dress up. I even have some chiffon skirts and things that I don't wear that are just hanging there, so I just might wear them. And so today I want to show you my teacup, and then if you've got something you need to do, you can go do it while you listen. There isn't anything going on here. I've got a bit of a different background for you. My backgrounds, I have to clean up back there, and honestly, it's hard for me. But I am taking it seriously that you would like me to do a home tour. I'm going to try to do that and get some good pictures and put them on a video for you. I don't think I can get my house all cleaned up at the same time, but I can take pictures as I go. Now, this cup was the only one that I could find that had that soft blush pink that I'm wearing today, and that I used in decorating so much, that I like so much. And it's one of the Grace's teaware. It says dishwasher safe. It has a bit of metal on it, a bit of gold on it, but I don't normally put things like this in the dishwasher because eventually it will wear off the beautiful finish. And I like them. I like the new things. They look like the old ones, but they are more sturdy, and I like the freshness of them. And today I also have to show you a couple of things. Mr. S likes to go out sometimes, and I told you in our area everybody's out and about. I went out today, and I want to report what I saw. Everybody happy, everybody with their children, and everything is gone that I wanted. The magazines are wiped out, especially the cooking magazines are wiped out. The ingredients are gone, but not the commercial packaged boxed things like cookies and cakes and pies. Nobody touches them, not even the cake mixes. They're still there, but the shelves are piled high with all the commercial bread, with all the commercial uh, cookies. And apparently people are at home now and they have time to bake, and they like the taste of it because your taste buds start coming alive after a while, and so that's good. But the books and magazines were pretty thinned down, so instead of using the web all the time, I think people are getting into turning pages now, because you won't lose anything, and the book will be there when you get up again the next morning. And I do have a couple of books to share with you today. I don't know if I'll read anything out of them, but I want to show them to you. But Mr. S had to go out, and he doesn't like to come home empty-handed. We live out in the country, and he has always stopped somewhere and called me and asked me to tell him to bring something home. Was there anything you need? Just tell me, give me one thing. And I'll say, no, I think I can't think of anything. He says, well, just think of something. I want, it's very limited for the men. If they go shopping, the things they want are so expensive, like trucks, cars, wagons, tractors. Those things are so expensive. Everything they want is so expensive. So it's enjoyable for them to stop at a grocery store and get something for their wife. And this is what he does. He calls and he says, do you want anything? And I say, I just can't think of anything. He says, well, tell me something. I want to bring home something. So I said, well, find some interesting tea for me. So I have to show you this interesting tea. And he brought me home one called Peach Tranquility. And these are herbal teas, chamomile with notes of citrus. And they're in the little silk bag. Isn't that lovely? I make tea now in the cup and just have one of those kettles that I showed you, because then the tea doesn't get cold and I get a fresh hot cup. And teapots, they're hard to clean. But anyway, this smells wonderful. It's called Peach Tranquility, and I like the container that it's in. It looks like a coffee cup, I think, but it has little bits of peaches in it. And so I wanted to show you that Peach Tranquility, and then I'll tell you what he said. You know it's going to be rye, don't you? And dry. Well, okay, this one is called Youthberry, and the little silk bag, and it smells absolutely wonderful. It says wild orange blossoms and berries, and does it ever smell good? It has rose petals in it too. I'll show you what it looks like here. And they had other colors too. They had the mint, and they had the blueberry, and they had many other things, but he brought these two home from Walmart. It's called Tea Vanna. So he said one of them is called Peach Tranquility, and the other is called Youthberry. So we have tranquility and youth. So you can be tranquil, he said, and be young at the same time. Now, isn't that something? Because those two things don't usually go together. So I'll take it. I'll be tranquil and youthful at the same time. I don't have to choose between, so I might even mix my drinks. So ladies, I also have something I want to show you today before you get going, and it's a book, one of those Victoria books that was published in 1995 or something like that, and it's called At Home with Roses. Now, I really like this book, but one thing you can do if you find something that's disagreeable or not a good thing in a book, something that really goes against your values, you can alter them. You can put scrapbook things on, little bits of things on the page that you don't like. And it's a beautiful book. And I wanted to show you first the end papers. I've shown you that the Victoria magazine in the 1990s it's not the Hoffman Media, it was a different company, and they put beautiful end papers in these books, making them a book worth keeping. This is what this book looks like. It has an embossed edge on it. But on page 112, I started reading this, called The Blooming Roses, and it says, the rose has no choice but to look noble, even sublime. For some 26 million years it has inherited the earth. Millennia before man arrived, it was already scattered over the northern hemisphere of China, Japan, America, and Europe. Well, of course, we as Christians believe that you can determine the age of the earth, and it's only 4,000 years, and it starts when history first started being recorded, and goes on to the present day. And you can actually determine the age of the earth by adding up the ages of people starting in the Old Testament and ending in the New, and then adding the years since then, since the last book of the Bible was written, and that it amounts to 4,000 years and So I hate this where it says 26 million years, and we've gone to national parks that, our tax dollars pay for, and this evolution attitude of, millions and millions of years is put on stones, and it's telling, when this park first came to be and how all the granite got there and everything, and they always push this. But what I will do, because I like the book, I was just going to show you a beautiful picture in the book. What I will do, uh, I particularly like this picture. In fact, I think there was a rubber stamp made that was very similar to this in the same era. But what I'll do is I will use that page as a scrapbook page and put something else on it. But because I wanted to keep the book, and I really like everything about it. And it's a wonderful coffee table book, and if it probably goes with some of your things, so I wanted to keep it. But I also didn't want someone reading that because I felt that it was a falsehood that couldn't be proven. And so then I have another book, and I remember I gave you the little lecture about why I think it's okay and it's also healthy to read books about people who get married, and boys being nice to girls and girls being nice to the boys, and just behaving properly toward one another. And so I showed you some of these books from Barber Book Company. And this is another one that was printed by Barber Book, and it's called A Wedding to Remember, and it's by Annalisa Dowdy. Now, Annalisa Dowdy was the one that wrote Love Finds You in Charm. There was she wrote for Guidepost, and she got her book into a movie called Love Finds You in Charm, and it was put together so beautifully. Remember, it was about the Amish girl that wanted to go into the world and experience some things that really weren't too nice, and about the young man that she met that was wiser than she was, and it ended so nicely. And so she has written an interesting book about a man and a woman that have separated but got back together. I wish there were more. I wish there were more stories like this about people in marriage and how they made things work. And so this is a different way of saying things. So I just thought that this was interesting. I won't read anything about it to you, but I just thought you might be interested in that. That's the last of that I wanted to show you. Now, if you've got something to fold, something to load or unload, I'm having an awful time remembering to unload that dishwasher in the morning. I didn't grow up with a dishwasher. In fact, I didn't even get a dishwasher, I think, until probably 1992. And so it's new to me, and it's a habit I'm having a hard time doing, but I'm loving the fact that I do unload it, and in the morning it's ready for the next batch of dishes to go in, and that sink doesn't just pile up with dirty dishes. And I need to learn that habit too, is to load it as I go. So today I want to talk to you about getting dressed and getting ready and looking your absolute best. There's no better place. Do you all remember in Hobby Lobby there was a sign there, and I went back to get it one time and it's gone, but it was talking about of all the things that you accomplished. I'll try to post it on the post so you can see it, and maybe a place where you can go buy it. It's called All the Things That You, is a little saying that you accomplish. The most important thing you will ever do are the things that is what you do at home. That is so true. When you go and look at the albums and the diaries and the pictures of your great grandparents or your grandparents, you're not as interested in what they did outside of the home as you are interested in what they did in the home. And you want some of their things. You want their teacups, and you want their handiwork, their needlework. And if they have a quilt, you want that, or something they painted, you want that. And so what you do at home is more important. And so I think if you haven't gotten dressed, but you're kind of walking around in circles, you haven't quite woken up yet, get yourself a nice hot cup of tea and a notebook and start making a list. And even if things haven't gone well so far, and I did talk about this in an article I wrote about how I noticed that the times when people were the most fussy or nervous or discontent were the times when I wasn't ready for the day and I hadn't started. I was still sitting there in my pajamas and I'd started on something and hadn't fixed a proper meal and didn't look like I was ready for the day. That was the day that everybody seemed to be discombobulated. And so I think you'll notice that too. So I also remember that, and I say any time during the day, you can go and get a shower and start over and get your appearance ready and have a day. And it doesn't matter what time your day starts, just start it right with taking care of your appearance, with preparation. That this is so important. Is your hair done? Do you smell good? Are you happy with the way you look? Do you like what you're wearing? Do you feel happy? Now, of course, I would wear an apron over this. I wouldn't just, go in to clean up something or cook with just this on. I would have an apron. It just gets me. Sometimes I watch the cooking shows on YouTube, the various cooking shows, and some of those people do not wear an apron, and there's stuff splashing all over the place, and I don't know. I just prefer an apron. I wear them out pretty quickly too. But I remember in Wives and Daughters how Molly had a reaction to her father announcing to her that he was going to get married again. And she really reacted. She wasn't happy about it. So he and she parted company, and she ran to Mrs. Hamley, who she was staying with, and she said, "Oh, Mrs. Hamley, I did behave so badly to my father today." And she said, there, you can make all right again tomorrow. And that's the way it is with getting dressed or redressed. You can make it all right again. You can start over, and that's the beauty of your appearance. Is if anything, if all you are going to do today is sit down, write a letter, or just sit down and read something, if that's all you're going to do, or if usually I have about 10 things on my list and I do 2 of them, or if I'm lucky, I might only end up doing 1. I'm very slow, but if that's all you're going to do, at least be dressed for it, okay? Because what it does is it puts dignity in your role at home and makes your family, you might not feel that they respect you like you want or that they value you, but if you'll start getting dressed up, you can dress better, than the people at school. You can dress better than the teachers. You can dress better. You have the ability and the freedom there's no one dictating your uniform. You have the ability to dress better than anyone out in the working world. Really, you do. You have the ability to look great. So try to do that, because life is short. And what are you waiting for? And it's like I said, get your fancy teacups out and use them. The queen is not coming. So just go ahead and make it happen for yourself. Make yourself something to create a memory and to make life have value. You only get one chance at it. So, and I also noticed in that episode of Wives and Daughters that Molly was at the dinner table with the Hamleys, and she had changed her dress. Remember, she got a new dress. It was a plaid dress. And so now that you're dressed, I want to go on about how much you can enjoy the rooms in your house. I've really been enjoying mine a lot and looking at different ways in which they can be used. For example, can you take one of the bedrooms and put a corner in of a little, I think every room should have a reading area or a desk area. Can you do something different with your living room? I've put a dining room in my living room, so now I have 3 dining areas. When you think of how many times you sit down to eat, why not have some different places to sit? I have one in front of the big picture window in the living room. That's where the ladies come and they have their tea. And I have one in the kitchen. And I like the one in the kitchen because I can keep an eye on what's going on top of the stove or the hob, and I can, be there when I hear the oven go off, and I can kind of keep my eye on what's going on there. And also, it's really close to the hot food. Now, the farm kitchens were in there, the dining area was right in there, and they could reach over and open the oven door and get out some hot biscuits. Isn't that nice? So you can see why the farm kitchen was so important. And then I have the formal dining room that actually has an old chandelier that I got and put in, and so there are different. So when there's too many people for the kitchen, I can put them in the dining room, and we can just eat a little more formally there. Now we're going to talk a little bit about homemaking and how important it is for you to fall back on a few habits that give you stability no matter what. Now, if you look back at people that you used to know, maybe who have passed on, but you knew them when they were older and they had things that they did no matter what the rest of the world was doing, no matter what the current crisis was, no matter what the news was. And I still remember back in around, goodness, I think it might have been 2006 or 2005, there was a lady that had a blog, and she lived in, I don't know if it was Serbia, but she was over there with a church, and she had posted a picture of a couple of elderly women sitting outside in their front yard around a round tea table, drinking tea, while there was a smoke from firearms in her back, in the back area of the backyard. And she said that these women had just grown so used to all the commotion and all the war that they just began to resume their normal life. And this is what you have to do. And I will talk more about how you can keep normalcy in your life. It's so important to keep normalcy in your life. There's nothing in the Bible that says you have to stop doing good things for your home. You're supposed to guide and guard the home. You're supposed to be a keeper at home. And you don't stop that just because the world is in upheaval. And unless your home is destroyed and everything comes crashing down around you, even then, if you had to go and temporarily pitch a tent, you would still have to have some kind of custom or order going on. You'd have to know to get up in the morning and find a way to bathe and find a way to cook and a way to prepare food and take care of everybody. You'd have to find a way to wash clothes and make things as comfortable as you can. And for most of us who have been home most of our lives and are homemakers, we've got this down, because when there is some kind of upheaval, or someone gets sick, or there's some kind of upsetting thing going on, that's when we dig in the most and when we shine the most. Is that's when we are going to make life more normal. We're going to make sure we have those meals. We're going to make sure we have a time to get up, and we're going to make sure that we do get dressed. We're not going to lay around waiting for the world to right itself. You can't do that. And I'll tell you more about that later. So to give that stability to your life, no matter what, make sure that every day you do something, no matter what's happening in the world. Have your tea, make your list, plan your food preparation, read to your children, wash the clothes, do something creative for everyone, and be a light for your home. And there's a saying that if it's raining all the time and there's no sunshine, you can be the sunshine, and you have to be for your children, because they don't notice the things going on in the world. They only notice what's going on in the home. So you can create that kind of home that everyone wants to come home to. And it starts right now. You don't wait until later. You start planting the seed of it now. You start doing the things that make that home memorable and pleasant for everyone. So do some things that create stability in your life, so that you create habits, so that you're not always on your toes in an alert state of panic. And that is, have your tea, read a few books and magazines, write a letter, journal, be creative, and do it no matter how hard the world and others scream at you. Can you do one creative thing in your home? Just anything, any little thing. Change your tablecloth, put a different centerpiece on, get out your fake flowers and arrange them a different way. And just any little thing. Sweep the floor, rearrange furniture, clean out a drawer, do one creative thing. Now, for me, sewing is not creative because it's hard labor. I'm actually making clothes for people. So that wouldn't be the creative thing that I would do. If I were to sew something and it were creative, it'd be some little piece of beauty, or like making some cloth thing that was small, that was decorative, and wasn't absolutely necessary. It'd be creative. So create it, create your home so that it's better than anywhere else, and remember to have the comforts that you want, the lighting that you want, the kind of atmosphere that you want, and try to try to make it, think of places that you like to go. Now, most of us who have been home for a long time have started to prefer it at home. We even vacation at home because we prefer our own clean bedding and our wonderful crisp sheets that have come off the line, and we prefer our own bathroom and our own fresh food preparation. So that, to us, that's relaxing. We want to be home, and so we don't want to pay a huge amount to go on a vacation anywhere. And so sometimes people that go on vacation come home in a worse mood than when they left. So I would also suggest that if you think you might like to homeschool your children, to go to Abeka, that's Abeka, and order a couple of books. One of the ones that I liked was a grammar and spelling book. I believe it was called Grammar and Spelling for Christian Schools, and it was fourth grade. I think the fourth grade materials were just the best. Order yourself a grammar and spelling book and a mathematics book, and do a page a day and test it out on yourself. And if you enjoy it, your children will enjoy it, because you will reflect the happiness to them when you teach it to them, when you help them with it. So go and get yourself a set of books that you think you might like and go through their curriculum. And you might try Old World History and Geography, which is one of the ones that my children liked, and just read a page a day of each, or a lesson a day of each, and educate yourself. If you're a teacher, you do that. Go to Abeka and get some things. There are other companies too, but this is one of the ones that we use. We had an assortment. We ordered from several different companies. We had a nature studies book, and I don't know what company that came from. It might have been Christian Liberty, but that was really an interesting book, so that they could learn natural science, and it was, you could figure out things from your own backyard. And this is not to say we're going to be stuck at home all the time. As my children got older, I sensed that they would need to spread their horizons, go a little further, and we got in the car, we went places, and we ate out, and we did a lot of other things. But when they're smaller, they can have an adventure at home. And I tell you what, there's so many things you can do at home. You can pretend you're going on a trip. You can pack your little suitcases, and you can go and spend the night in each other's rooms. Or you can, there's just so much you can do to enhance their minds and make them see things in a different way. Now, I've talked a little bit about the home, and I hope you're making it lovely. I hope you make it the way you want it to be, and that you're not just sitting there with wishful thinking, looking at everything and saying, "Oh, I have such a mess to clean up." Instead of expressing a complaint about anything in your home, here's my suggestion. Just list it on your paper as a job. Don't complain about it. Don't say, "Oh, that wallpaper needs to be removed. I wish somebody would remove that wallpaper." I just write it down, remove wallpaper. And don't complain about it, and don't blame, but just express it on your list as something that needs to be done. Now, I want to talk about human behavior, because we always go to that. And I've only been here 30 minutes, so I wanted to talk a little bit about human behavior. So I'll just go with my notes. They're not all in order, and when I get to if I decide that I'm going to discuss anything in politics, I will tell you, and if you don't want to hear it, you can go. I try to leave you all on a pleasant note. And one of the things you can do if you decide that you want to keep in touch with the news and with politics is go to the X22 report, because he speaks in a calm voice and often quotes scripture, and I it has a very upbeat attitude about what's going on and shows what's actually happening and what the good side of it is. And so we're entering, this is the study of human behavior, and I'm going to include, the people in your life that maybe pull you down a little bit with their attitudes. And we will get to that and how you can work around them and still have a beautiful life and a beautiful home. And one of the things my mother used to do, we had many lonely hours and long, long winters out on the homestead and in Alaska, and snowed in and lonely, and my dad always had to go away to work for a few weeks, and it was hard. But my mother wrote stories, and that expanded her mind and kept her from going nuts and kept her from wandering off, in because sometimes it could really get to you with the cabin fever. And she wrote stories, and she taught us all to write stories too. And so that might be something you would want to start. And journaling is another thing you might want to start, which is similar to writing a story. So today I want to talk a little bit about our friends and family that might be uh, plaguing us a little bit in the home, and sometimes their comments, their remarks to you can get in your head and debilitate you, and you can't seem to focus, and you start to doubt yourself, or you start to get very upset. And this doesn't just include people but the media. And I've talked to you about the media before, and I will probably lecture you quite a bit about it right now because it's not a friend of the home. But one good thing that has happened in all of this that's going on in 2020 is that Christians and homemakers and Americans have thrived through all of this. I went to town and was looking for some things, and all the hoes and rakes and shovels were gone. All the bags of old bark and fertilizer and soil were gone, and the seeds were gone, and the cooking things were gone, things to cook with, not the automatic plug-in things, but there wasn't a fry pan in sight, and the dishes are gone. And because people are at home and they're thriving, and they must be enjoying it because they took all the pretty dishes first, left the plain ones. So I thought that was just so interesting. I'm so enthused about it. And also, they're making this is what we've always done, even as homeschoolers. We taught our children how to make something so they could sell it and make money. We taught them how to provide a service, how to do something for someone else so they could learn an enterprise, and we taught them how to have a variety of skills so they could have blue-collar jobs, white-collar jobs, and just about do anything. And so this is what people are doing. They probably just didn't have time for it before, but people seem to be thriving. Everyone seems happy. The children particularly look rested and happy, and that's good. And so I want to talk a little bit right now. If you want to go on, you can, and leave and go on to something else. If this does not suit you and you don't find this interesting or valuable, you are sure welcome to move on. I won't hurt my feelings. Won't hurt my feelings even if you unsubscribe. So I'm going to talk a little bit about cultural Marxism because I have mentioned that before. But what it is if you aren't going along with what the media, education, the government, and Hollywood make popular or blast out there and always broadcasting, that's the media, the education, the government, and Hollywood. Those are four more branches of unelected government that uh, specialize in social engineering. If there's anything that has gone on in life around you that you're not happy with, anything that being promoted that you're upset with, whether it's a style, whether it's a type of cartoon, whether it's the books that you see on the shelves in the stores, whether it's the toys, and just any number of things that's bothering you, it's been promoted by the media, by education, by government, and by Hollywood. Those are the four branches of unelected government. They are also deep state. Deep state just means they've been there a long, long time. They're just kind of embedded in there. They have been pilfering money to support their lifestyles and the things that they promote. And so when you aren't going along with them, with the popular things, you are, um, they believe, the cultural Marxism is the belief that if you aren't going along with something, you are attacking it. You see what I'm saying? This started a long time ago. I was very confused by it when it first started in the 1980s. My children each were taught to write a newsletter, just like the one I show you here, the one-page newsletter, and I told them they each had to write their own newspaper. And they would take things out of their homeschool books and learn, define a word, write a poem, write a little history lesson. And one of my children was quite clever. He did interviews. And he interviewed famous people that no longer existed, like George Washington or Napoleon. And he taught a history lesson by the interviews, like what did you do first, where did you go next, what was the greatest accomplishment of your life, things like that. And so he did an interview in his newspaper. And they did all kinds of things. So they had to write a newspaper. And one day, I gave one of we went and got copies, and I gave one away to someone who thought what we were doing was really interesting. Well, when she saw me next, she threw that newspaper back at me and said, "This is not right because you're condemning anyone who does not write a newspaper, and not everybody can do this." So this is this mentality that first began, and it comes from listening to the media, the education system, the government, and Hollywood, and they tell you things. Now, I mentioned X22 report. I believe it's episode 2018B that he talks about how the news media will drop certain trigger words in a report, and you fill in the blanks with your mind. For example, he'll say something like, 2000 and such people were warned about an incoming flood of something or other. And so your mind automatically locks down on that and it says that 2,000 people were harmed when it didn't actually say that. And so then the fear sets in. And fear is a great motivator and a great manipulator. And you can use fear to control people and to alter things, alter life for them. And so the idea that you're attacking someone when you don't do something that other people do, that's cultural Marxism. That's part of it. And you saw this years ago. You just didn't know you saw it. But years ago you saw it with when we first started the web, and there were trolls, and they had no argument. They just would get on, and I saw some of the nicest blogs totally have to shut down and destroy, because a troll, what they would do is get on there and say to a little homemaker or a woman who was just showing how she made dolls, or showing how she made jewelry, or maybe scrapbook supply lady that was selling her ideas. A troll would get on there and in the comments and say something like, "You're a snob because you know other people can't do this, and you think you're better than other people." And this would just go on and just wear people down. And these people weren't doing anything, but it's the idea that if they promote this idea that if you are, and that, by the way, trolls were generally, I believe, hired, because who would do that? Who would go to all that trouble for free? and they actually don't produce anything, and they don't accomplish anything, but so somebody's paying them to be worthless like that. And so that was the idea, that you would indoctrinate people with the idea that if you tried to excel and you tried to go for your full potential and to do something in life that was really wonderful and beautiful, and then you tried to share it with someone would attack you and say, you're not running with us, you're not behaving like the rest of the world, and therefore you are attacking us. So remember that the Bible says, I believe it was 1 Peter chapter 4. Let me see if I could read that to you here. Beloved, do not be surprised at the fiery trial when it comes upon you to test you, as though something strange were happening to you. See, there's our problem. We're so confused when somebody attacks us and says you're a snob. You just think you're better than everybody else, and you think, and you are just the meanest person. And that's another thing they'll do, is tell you that you're mean and that you're um, that you hate people. They will tell you that because you're not running with them. Beloved, do not be surprised at the fiery trial when it comes upon you to test you, as though something strange were happening to you. There's our mistake. We always look at it like, well, that's strange. That's just out of character with so-and-so. It might even be someone you've known all your life. That's just out of character. They shouldn't be like that. I want to make it right with them. But the thing is, a lot of these people were always like that. They were just restraining themselves when they were around you. But when you bucked the system and you decided you weren't going to pay attention to the education establishment, the media, the government, and Hollywood, and you were going to be different, then they became very angry. And it says here in chapter 4, um, with respect to this, it talks about all this stuff that the Gentiles do. With respect to this, they are surprised when you do not join them in the same flood of debauchery, and they malign you. And I think that it says they think it's strange that you run not with them, or you run not with them. Remember that. And so here's our problem. We approach it as though something strange were happening to us. And what we need to think is, oh, they're just doing what those kind of people do. That's what they do, and they accomplish nothing. Have a look at the fruits of what they're saying. Are they accomplishing anything? Are they? Do they have a better way of doing it? Do they have an example? No, they're just there to run you down and to criticize you, just as the media was when Nehemiah was building the wall. The media, the local spokespeople, came around to harass the workers and tell them that they weren't doing a good job, or that it was no use, and to demoralize them. And that's what happens. It says here, do not act as though something strange were happening to you, but rejoice and be glad when you share Christ's sufferings. So there's nothing that we are suffering that Christ has not already suffered. The other thing I want to talk about is what makes you a target to people who are negative. I don't like to always use that word, but I can't think of anything better. But people who are naysayers, people that will constantly come back at you with a harsh reply, with a hasty, sharp reply, and are so critical. Sometimes they don't know it because they've done it all their lives. They've been that way all their lives. And they become quite competitive, and they don't realize that that is how they discourage people. So one thing I'd like to do is, if you're an older woman especially, don't become anyone's conscience. Don't become the tone police, and don't become the perception police, and don't become the behavior police to people around you that are that you don't have any authority over. Because, and if you're young, don't start that. Don't start being the critic. Don't start that, because it's a very hard habit, and it's hard to shake, and it becomes more difficult. It will become more embedded in your personality when you're elderly. Would you like to be an elderly woman that no one can stand, that no one wants to be around, that everyone avoids? Don't try to become someone's conscience. Now, we have a situation right now in this world where some people believe that they should go out and exercise their freedom, and go to market, and go to work, and have church, and have ladies' Bible class. But there's other people that don't believe that they should. And so, but what I've noticed is the people that are minding their own business, that are very productive, that go ahead and go and get what they need and go do what they need to do, are not judging the people that don't believe that they should. They just go get their business done and come home, and they work hard again. But the people that don't believe that everyone should be free, or can go out, uh, they give the hard stares. They give the hard look. And if you'll notice, fear is motivating them. They believe that you're harming someone by going somewhere. And so the fear starts in their eyes, and then the fear becomes criticism. And then the criticism moves into condemnation. And then the condemnation moves into hatred. And then the hatred moves into punishment. And so if you've got friends, if you've got relatives that don't like it that you are behaving more freely than they are, they punish you and they'll cut you off. But as your swampy friends begin to leave you, you have more time to be creative. You'll be amazed how much brain space it frees up. And of course, we always are sad, aren't we, to see them go. But we've got to keep living and we've got to be happy. So, the perception police. Now, this always starts with a question. You have to realize, too, that you might become a target of someone. Now, whether times are good or times are bad does not matter. You've always got these people around who are critics and are looking for something to criticize. They've got to have fuel, and they target you. Well, you can prevent that if you'll start to analyze your behavior when these people are around. When you open your mouth and you say something, what do they glom onto? What do they jump onto? What do they say? Do you give too much information? The real clever people, they will give information just to tangle these people up, and the information might be just not quite accurate, but enough to get somebody going. It's kind of like Cranford by Elizabeth Gaskell. You know, there are always some ladies who would take something that was said and they go run down the street and talk about it when it wasn't, they didn't quite get all the facts. Now, some people are really good at messing these people up, but other people are sitting ducks. And these people that target you for trouble, that target you for an argument, they will ask a question. It starts with a question like, what did you do today? Be careful how you answer, because then you become a target. Just say a little of this and a little of that, and now I'm fixing to go and do something else. And just say, and I really have, my time is really limited, so I'm glad you called, or I'm glad you texted, but I have got to go. I am so busy. And do not give too much information, because if you said something like, well, I washed the dishes today, and you're going through some kind of a problem with water. Let's just say someone said that all our water was tainted. Somebody will say, well, you shouldn't have washed the dishes. Be careful what you say to people, because they like to fish for information, and then they like to criticize, and then they like to accuse, and then they like to condemn, and then they like to punish. And it's interesting how their eyes change, because you can talk to them for a while and they'll become normal again, kind of relaxed, and they'll settle down. The next time you see them, their eyes are back to the looking for trouble, looking for something to criticize, looking for something to condemn. And sometimes they've grown up that way and they don't actually know that they're doing it. So you've got these hole in the bucket people. That's a new personality type. I always hated these self-help books and marriage books that came out, and they always analyzed people according to a person. They create a personality type, have all these types of personalities, and you had to go through and try to figure out what type personality someone was, even if it was your husband. And but I call it the hole in the bucket personality. I've got my own personality types. The hole in the bucket personality is the one that can never fix anything. There's a hole in their bucket. Remember the song? There's a hole in my bucket, dear Liza, and she tries to help him fix this bucket, or vice versa, and he tries to help her fix the bucket, and they can't find anything to fix it, but there's always a solution, but then there's something wrong with the solution, and it just goes on and on and on till the very end, and they're back to having a hole in the bucket. This is the type of person that has a problem with everything, and it can't be fixed, and anything you do is wrong. And I call them the hole in the bucket personality. So I've got my own set of personality types that I talk about. And so things you can do to alleviate it is, first of all, test out yourself and see what are you doing that is triggering them or stimulating them. And for most time, I think we give too much information to these people. So when they're talking about something, keep it only to what they talk about and keep it very general, and don't give an opinion, because then they will grab your opinion and smash it. These people are really difficult, and they've got to have fuel, and so they target you, and they may target the most friendly, helpful person. You've got to be not so helpful. So I want to go into this fear thing, because I said one of the things that people are motivated by is fear. And so they listen to the media, and this is where they're getting their fear, is the media keeps it stirred up and hyped up, no matter what it is. And I've had a long experience with the media. I've seen them lie, get everybody fearful, motivate them to a certain way of voting, or motivate them to a certain prejudice or hatred by playing something over and over and over. And they're programmed. So they program someone, that someone will come up to you and say, I understand that such and such and such and such, and they're just quoting what they've been programmed by the media to say. And then when you say something different, then they begin to criticize and condemn. So they are very, very programmed. And the way that you can alleviate fear is stop believing in any media reports. Now, some of them sound okay, some of them sound oh good, but get away from them. Get away from even the conservative media. They keep that hype going. But like I say, if you still need something, if you still kind of need what's going on and you want some kind of current event report, go to X22 Report. He's very calm, and he almost posts every day, and it's just delightful. It's just delightful for us to see the news in a different way and what is really going on. You don't really need the news media anymore. None of us do. This is a new era. They are archaic. They're lost. They're just not necessary anymore. Just like school isn't really necessary. We can teach our own kids at home. We've got the media. We've got information. We've got books of our own. We're not dependent on one source of information. Well, the media is the same way. We've got people have got their phones. They've got their cameras. They've got the sites online. The YouTube, and they've got blogs, and they've got websites, and they can create and report their own news. And we really don't need these people, but they are a great source of indoctrination in our nation and in our world. And so but I think the thing that's the biggest cure, you really can't get away from them, because you're always going to be forced to hear something, maybe overhead in a store or something like that, is to unbelieve it, to just say, I don't believe a thing they say. How do you know when the media is lying? When they are talking. That is how you know, when their mouths are open. And look into their lives. Would you send a friend to sit at the feet of a teacher who has the kind of life that these media representatives have? Go and look at what they're reporting, and go and look at their lives and see, are they the kind of people you want to fill up your mind? Their words are filling up your mind. It's taking up faith space, taking up the space in your mind that's supposed to belong to God. I told you in my last video, love God with all your heart, with all your mind and your soul. We've forgotten about the mind. We've let the world take the mind. Oh yeah, go to church, and and my soul belongs to me, and the government doesn't want my soul. No, but they want your mind, because they can change your beliefs, and they can change your loyalties, and they can change your actions. They can change the look on your eyes, actually. Don't you just hate that when they get critical and they start giving you the squinty eye? And if you're not behaving like they are behaving, they condemn you, and it feels bad, doesn't it? It feels bad to be condemned and to be punished. But so stop believing. Just become an unbeliever. Just say, I don't believe it anymore. And I told you before, when your support structure, see, part of our support structure is the education system, the media, Hollywood, and what was that other one? There was one more. Let me see if I can find it. Goodness, I can't think of it. It was the media, Hollywood, education, and the government. And the government meaning the House of Representatives and all the people that are unelected that work there, and the Congress and that sort of thing. These people have become have taken up space in our minds, and space that belongs to God. And we think about what they say and we take it seriously. I want to talk to you a little bit about when people in the New Testament there was a terrible disease going around during New Testament times, and it was called leprosy. And all lepers had to be quarantined. The sick people were the ones who were quarantined, not the well people. So the quarantined people had to wear something over their face because they couldn't even breathe or cough on anyone because this was so thought to be so contagious. And if anyone came near a leper, and they had to be separate because they were quarantined, if anyone came near a leper, the leper was supposed to call out, "Unclean!" And that way it would warn people to stay away from them. Now, a good movie that you can watch that expresses this, I believe, in a more accurate way probably than we've seen in anything else, and that is Quo Vadis, if you want to go and watch that. And so what we have here is that the people who are not sick are quarantined, and that's called house arrest. However, I believe people are really thriving with this. They are enjoying the rest. They're sleeping in. They're not using their alarm clocks, and people are actually working from home and getting a lot done. And no one is. It's like the woman's oil jar that Elijah. She helped Elijah, and her oil jar was filled. Her olive oil jar. She would pour out oil, and then the jar would still be full. That's the way it is around here. Everyone's happy. Everyone looks healthy. People aren't starving. There's enough food. And one of the reasons that there's enough food is because before all this happened, Trump knew what they were up to, and that he knew that this was going to be a problem because he has inside information, is that he built the economy up and built the supply chain up enough, brought everybody home that were supplying things so that we didn't have to get things overseas, and that wouldn't be stopped. And so that in America, we've got a good supply chain, so our food is still there, our farmers are still working, our products are being manufactured now, so the supply chain is still there. But I do suspect that the deep state, who I told you who they are, they're just people that have been there a long, long time and have gleaned off the top of aid, financial aid to anybody. That's why they're so enthusiastic in Congress about helping other countries. Goodness, I don't know what happened to my color here.